Good evening. How are you? How is everyone doing? Happy Monday. Let me know if you can hear me. Let me know if you can hear the music. Hello. Good evening. Let me know if you can hear me. How was everyone's weekend? How was everyone's Monday? Let me know. My weekend was quite busy. Awesome. Thank you, Jason. Yeah, my weekend was quite busy. My Monday was a little busy, but not too bad. It was manageable today. Make sure you share the live. It's going to be a great interview tonight. Hello. Good evening. Make sure you share the live.
While both NetSuite and QuickBooks offer software designed.
Hello. Welcome. Make sure you share the live. Hello. I'm just going to give it a few more minutes to get people to come in. Let me know how your week went or weekend went, how your Monday's going. Give it a few minutes. Till then, just sit back, grab yourself a drink. It could be water, tea, juice. And we're gonna have a great conversation with our amazing guest. We're gonna chill. Hello, welcome. Hopefully you had a great weekend. Hello. Talk to me. Let me know how your weekend went, how your Monday is going, if it's still going, or how it went. Like I mentioned before, I had an extremely busy weekend. Monday, today, was a little chill, still busy, but manageable. Thank you. I'm a collector of glasses now since I found this amazing website. I'll tell you later. I don't want to promote them because I'm not getting paid. But yeah, I've been slowly collecting some glasses. I'm getting a couple more pairs, I think next month they should be coming in, so yeah. Hello, welcome. I think it's enough time we've given people. Jason just said, I had a steel band African drum and dance gig yesterday. I was actually I actually played tenor for this gig. I joined the dark side. Welcome, welcome. How did the gig go? Let me know. So, I see some new faces. Hello and welcome to All Things Pan. I am your host, Danielle George, and our sponsor is always and forever will be Pantastics 868. Make sure you check them out on Instagram. I pinned them at the bottom there. If you live in North America, I have a few tenor sticks left. I have a bunch of double second, double tenor, guitar. I think I have some cellos left. If you live anywhere else, make sure you hit them up on Instagram and we will both try our best to get them to you. So for those that are new, on this page we talk to Pannist, arrangers, tuners, builders, pan enthusiasts about all things pan. And tonight I'm excited to have our guest, Aaron Mentos. It's a long time coming. We've been talking back and forth, trying to make sure what days work. He's from Florida. I am so excited to have him on here. If you have any questions, anything I haven't hit, make sure you hit the question bubble below because I don't want to miss any questions or comments in the chat that's going on below. So we're just going to wait for our friend to join. And as well, the music that you heard was from our guest, Aaron Mentos. So we're going to talk to him about that and everything in between of Pan. Just waiting for him to join. Jason said it was a lot of fun for sure. It is always a great time to dance and sing with friends. Of course. Good night. Good night. Hello. Hello. Good evening. Good evening. Make sure you share the live. It's going to be a great conversation tonight. Just waiting for our guest to join. Hopefully it works. Hi, Desi. Yes, you have reached. Oh, let's make sure. I did get it and I did accept it. Aaron, there we go.
Hey,
How are
I'm
you?
good. I'm good. How about you?
I'm good. I'm good. You gotta love technology, hey?
I know. I know. I know. This is like one of my first lives. I haven't really been on it too much on IG, so yeah. So
So
sorry
am
if I
I?
was slow with sending that request.
That's okay. That's okay. No worries. No worries. So to let everyone know, your name is Aaron Mentos
Yep.
from Florida.
So I live in Florida,
You
but
live in Florida.
I'm from
Oh,
Massachusetts. So
okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Massachusetts, and then so I moved here from Boston probably like it's been close to 2 years now. Um,
Okay.
yeah,
So you're making
a year.
your mark.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
So
It's been fun.
yeah, that's good. That's good. You're a music producer, you're a pianist, you're a DJ, you're a TikToker. Is there anything I'm missing?
I would say TikToker, not yet. I'm because there's levels to that. You know what I
There
mean?
is.
So
Yeah.
I feel like I'm still definitely learning about that. There's a lot to learn with that.
But
So
you're doing your thing though. You're doing your thing.
I'm trying. I'm trying to get like you. So
Like me.
yeah,
I am nobody. I'm just a vessel.
not at all. Not at all. You're doing a
Um,
lot, and
thank
you're
you.
super consistent too, which is like the most important thing, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because like as long as you like stay consistent and like keep on, putting out quality content, like people start to pick up on it. But I feel like a lot of times like people be like have a good idea and then, people don't pick up on it immediately and so
Hmm.
they give up on it. But that's not how you build greatness though. It's like staying consistent even when nobody's watching sometimes. So but I
Exactly.
can see
Exactly.
like every episode it seems like there's more and more people tuning in and stuff. So, you know.
Getting there, getting there. But it's not about me, it's about you. This is about you tonight. So
Um,
you performed at corporate functions, weddings, private events. Is there anything else you performed at that we haven't mentioned?
um yeah, I do like restaurants. I do a lot of restaurants
Okay.
like I prefer personally I prefer to do restaurants that are during the daytime. So I don't really like doing the whole like show up at 12, perform at 2, end at like 6 in the morning, pack up at 7. That's not my thing. I like
It's not
to,
fun.
yeah, I like to rise with the sun. So
Yeah. Yeah. So is there anything else I've missed? Because I want people to know about you. You need to get out there.
yeah. So yeah, I think my main thing is like production actually, but that's the one thing that I'm maybe like least known for, I guess,
Okay.
right now. But that's because I've kind of like been building sort of my catalog a little bit in silence, and I'm kind of at a point where I have enough kind of built up that I'm ready to start working with a lot of different artists and stuff like that. And trying to get into stuff like sync licensing for movies and stuff. So uh,
Nice.
this coming month, I'm actually going to drop a project on, it's actually on, so basically, I'm going to create an instrumental album, and then I'm gonna take those instrumentals, and then I'm gonna take like vocals of songs that are current, and then just mash them up with them. So there's gonna be a few songs, but I had to represent Saint Kitts, so Taliban's is gonna be on there too,
Nice.
Byron Messiah. So yeah.
Nice. I'm excited. I'm excited. We're gonna talk about that a bit more later.
Okay.
So just want to get into it. Just get people to know you a bit more. How did you get involved with Steel Pan? Who brought you in?
Who brought me in? So that's like a long story, but basically, I started out when I was in kindergarten. My
Okay.
dad, yeah, like my dad, basically, he had a reggae and soca band, um, and when he came here from the islands, that was like really, over time I think he came like during a generation where there was like a big influx of like Caribbean people coming from all over the Caribbean to like New York, Boston.
Right.
I'm sure Miami too, but that's not where my family kind of ended up. My family all ended up in Boston.
Hmm.
And then he built his band up pretty much, and then I was basically just kind of born into it.
Yeah.
And so the first performance that I had, I remember I played "Stir It Up" for my kindergarten class. So if you look like dig in my Instagram page, you'll see actually a picture of me like when I was little playing the pen
Okay.
with my dad. And so yeah, that's how it started. And then I went through phases of really not playing it because I actually didn't own my own personal steel pen
Okay.
until very recently, and I'll probably speak on that a little bit more later. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's how I really got into it. And then I grew up playing in like steel pan like steel pan groups that my pops would basically he would be the leader of, and he would teach all the kids in the orchestra, um, and mostly it just being Caribbean, African social groups and stuff like that.
Right.
So, yeah,
So big up on Pops.
yeah, yeah. Those thoughts. Yeah,
So you've
that's
been you've been playing for a long time then.
yeah, yeah. I've been
Yeah.
playing for a long time, but like I said, I kind of like went in and out of phases of playing it and picking up other instruments. So I played uh the steel pan was the first instrument I played. Then I played the cello. Then I played the bass guitar.
Okay.
Then I learned the keyboard, and then I had like a little short period where I played like the trap drums, and then I started playing the guitar too. And like the guitar, the steel pan, the bass guitar, those are the ones that like really really stuck. The cello did for a while, but they're so expensive, so I never really like
Yeah.
actually went for it. So.
Yeah.
It was all just like free lessons and stuff through my school. So
Right.
yeah,
So if you had a choice out of all the steel pan instruments, what would be your go-to instrument if you had a choice?
uh, low C tenor.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Okay. All
yeah.
right. And that's
I mean,
the pen.
the bass players, they be looking cool though, with the like going back and forth and
Hmm.
stuff. Yeah.
I envy them.
But
Trust me. I envy the bass players.
yeah, no, they look real cool. But I think the thing about this is the thing when I was playing like the cello and orchestra, this was
Hmm.
one thing that I always was bothered by is that the violins would always get the melody, and we would just be playing like, between us and the viola or whatever. A lot of times we're just playing like what I learned later on were like kind of background chords, and just kind of like we would just kind of be in the background a little bit,
Yeah.
um, and so it's kind of it's doing what I'm doing now. The reason why obviously I play the tenor is because you know people like if you're playing as a soloist, nobody really wants to hear just like chords going through
Yeah.
the entire performance. They want to hear like melodies. So that's why
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So if you had your choice, you'd play
the one that I play.
the one you play.
Yeah.
Um, so you played. I just kind of want to touch in because you're a little bit famous, kind of.
No,
You
not at
played.
all. Not at
You
all.
played for the St. Kitts national team.
Oh,
There was an under 23 team. Yeah, I
yeah,
can't
yeah,
remember. Yeah.
yeah. For
How
the
did that come about? Because that was amazing.
yeah. So the way that came about was I grew up playing soccer like at a high level from very young.
Okay.
I started playing football before I even started really getting into music like that. Like from the point I could walk, and my
Mm-hmm.
brothers always played too. So I remember like my mom actually would like if she let me out of her sight, I'd be like on the field, just like trying to play with the older kids, like at a official like organized game, just on the field, like trying to play. Um, and so kind of like went up the levels. I ended up playing Division 1 ball at Colgate,
Oh
and
wow.
at one point my freshman year, it was like right close to the Thanksgiving break. Um, I got a message from my coach, and it was from the president of the SKNFA,
Wow.
just basically reaching out and saying, "Hey, like one of your players is of Kittian descent. We'd love to have him represent our team for the Caribbean finals of the Olympic tournament."
Wow.
And basically, within like 2 days, I was in St. Kitts, had a St. Kitts passport and everything, and citizenship. So it was a little bit bittersweet because, when I got that message, I was like, oh, it's like perfect timing because I had just come off an injury.
Mm-hmm.
But I ended up like re-injuring myself the first training session that I had. And
Uh,
then I played in one of the games, but after that game, it was just like, me and the trainer just like kind of had a conversation. We're like, yeah,
yeah.
it's not really worth it because you know, it like I'm playing at like like 70%, maybe 50%. I don't even know, but I
Mhm.
definitely wasn't at full speed. So I would have loved to have had that experience at 100%, but it's still always memories.
Mhm. For sure, for sure. And so did the coach reach out to you to play for, I think it was during, I can't remember what it was for.
Oh, for the so I didn't actually play for that squad. That
Okay.
was for the Gold Cup. Which shout out to the St. Kitts national team. We definitely, that we made history because they went
Definitely.
further than they've ever gone before. And I think a lot of people are because we lost to Jamaica, Trinidad, and the U.S. pretty bad.
Hmm.
But you have to think about it like how many millions of people are in the United States, how many millions of people are in Jamaica, how many millions of people are in Trinidad, and then you look at St. Kitts and it's 50,000
Yeah.
people that are on the island, a little bit over. So, you know, you look at some of the stadiums and the entire population in St. Kitts could fill that stadium, which is it's not the same with Trinidad. It would be like a lot of overflow, Jamaica, a lot of
Yeah.
overflow, and United States, like a crazy amount of overflow, you know?
Hmm.
So I think for such a small island, we just have a lot of talent in music and soccer and or football, I should say,
Hmm.
you know, and a lot of different things. And you can see it right now in music, like Byron Messiah. You know, he's not the only artist, but he's, you know, getting a lot of shine right now and a lot of love on like a huge level. And he comes from a place, like I said, that's only 50,000 people. So it's
Yeah.
like, you know, for such a small place, there's a lot of talent. So yeah,
Yeah. 100%. And you are one of them.
thank you. Appreciate it.
You are one of them. Um, we kind of mentioned it before, but you are a DJ as well. Did
Yeah.
did
Yeah.
DJing come before or after like Pan?
Um,
Because you kind of said you were kind of in and out of Pan, so did that
yeah.
kind of fit in the middle there?
Yeah, so Penn definitely came first. And to be honest with you, so the way that I got into DJing was, you know, like I said, I started playing the bass guitar and guitar. So I would oftentimes accompany my dad to like, you know, he'd just be like, "Oh, I have this wedding gig. You want to come and play this with me?" You know, and
Hmm.
then I would go and play whatever. I would use the money to get some shoes or whatever. Even when I was like younger, I would get my football boots off of the money that I would make off of doing those gigs. You know,
Yeah.
um, and then so I remember I had like kind of a realization when I started getting a little bit older, you know, because I realized sometimes they would just kind of put us on the side and it'd be like kind of background music while we're playing the steel pan, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
And then they would love it. Like everybody loves it. Everybody comments on it and everybody, you know, just like it's a real big thing where it's like it's so unique and it's
Yeah.
not something that people see every day, especially if they're not from the culture.
Exactly.
And so I just kind of I noticed though that they had a DJ coming in and the DJ was coming with this like, you know, this big like U-Haul, like setting up this big stage and everything like that,
Yeah.
the lights and stuff like that. And I'm thinking like they they're probably paying this DJ a lot. So I'm like, all right, well, if we could double up what we're getting paid here and then also DJ that event as well, that's like that's a serious
Hmm.
that's a serious situation, you know what I mean? So I just kind of kept that in mind, and then once I got to a point where I was in a place to be able to get the gear, like financially and stuff, to be able to get the gear to DJ, I just got it. And being a musician and producer already, it kind of came as second nature. I didn't really have to do a lot of, you know, like the learning curve was a lot shorter for me compared
Right.
to maybe the average DJ who a lot of times they don't necessarily have any like music theory knowledge or nothing like that. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. 100%. So as you said, you put DJing in with your steel pan. Have you done that simultaneously, like DJing and playing pan?
Yeah,
Have you done that?
yeah. So like lately I've pretty much been playing my backing tracks and instrumentals off of my DJ controller.
Okay.
Um just because it's like you can you can kind of like prepare more songs. Like you can have like four songs loaded up and just ready to go so
Hmm.
that you know the transitions are like faster. So you know there's you know if it's like a point where people are up and dancing to like whatever you're playing, you can kind of like every time that you stop playing and there's like dead space is when people will sit down, you
Right.
know, whatever, have a conversation or whatever. But if you keep the beat going like the whole time, they're not gonna sit down. They don't have that break to, sit down. So
Yeah.
when you get people up and dancing, it makes it easier to just kind of transition into the next song.
Makes sense. Hope everyone watching is learning from that.
Yeah.
Um, so you also made yourself a business. What made your what decision came like how did that come about to make yourself an LLC? Because there's a lot of pan players that are just kind of not thinking in the business mindset. So I kind of want to get them into that business mindset of being taken more seriously.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I was actually, it's funny, I had like a lot of, my friend Isaiah, he's one of the people that like when I really started getting back into playing the steel pan, he was kind of like a lot more advanced than me. He grew up playing pan in Trinidad,
Mm,
like going back home to Trinidad in the summers, playing with him, and playing with a bunch of different orchestras and stuff. But we've had a lot of conversations on this topic like earlier, just earlier today. So it's like fresh in my mind. But I would say with the LLC, the biggest thing is that it gives a level of legitimacy to your business. So if I mean, like people are always, if you're charging a certain amount of money, like people are always going to be like, wait, well, like, is this a scam or is this like
yeah,
XYZ? You know what I mean? If you have an LLC, you have that LLC backed up with the website. There's just like levels to that where it's like, okay, this probably isn't a scam because, why would somebody harm their own business like
right.
this? You have reviews, you have like all this sort of stuff, right? So that's one part, the legitimacy that it gives you. Um, uh, Secondly, I would say for tax purposes out here in the United States, that's a big thing, because having an LLC, having a business, you can write off a lot of things that if you weren't, if you didn't have that business, if you didn't have that status, you wouldn't necessarily be able to write off. Or if you did write them off, you might have like a higher chance of getting audited or, dealing with a bunch of stuff that you don't want to deal with.
Right.
Um, so yeah, that's a big thing. And, for example, like um, tax season, the way that I have my space set up is I have like pretty much half of the house set up as a studio
Mm,
and practice space, if not a studio.
mm,
Um, so I can write off up. You can write off up to half of your living space actually
yeah.
as a tax write-off, so you don't have to pay taxes on that. Whatever, like if or basically that's like it's an expense. It's included as a business expense. So
Hmm.
half of your rent, you have to live somewhere regardless, right?
Yeah.
You could take half of that rent and now that's a business expense. So that's not income that's coming in. Whereas if you didn't have it set up as an LLC, you have to report well, I mean, you have to report it as all of that income as income coming
Yeah.
in, and then your living space, like you're not actually including that in any of your expenses. And if anywhere that you're living is anywhere similar to what it's like in Miami, that's a big expense. So
Yeah.
yeah, especially I know there's a lot of Panists in New York too. So
Hmm.
New York rent prices are through the
Insane.
roof. Yeah.
Insane. Have you had any obstacles when it comes to being booked, as in like not getting paid or the performance changed and they didn't tell you, or anything else that you want to share? And how have you overcome it?
Yeah, I'm not even gonna hold you. Like, I haven't really had too many experiences like
That's
that.
good.
I think that's part of just like having kind of a little bit like street knowledge to be able to be like, all right, well, um, I'm not. this person seemed kind of sketchy, so I'm not really trying to do business with this person. You know what I
Right.
mean? But also, there's certain things that, certain situations you could find yourself in that, even that isn't going to help you, So
Mhm.
one situation that happened was I booked a wedding for like I think it was over a year in advance. So I had
Mhm.
this wedding on my calendar for over a year, and it was both playing the steel pan and DJing too. And because they were looking for like live music, but then they were like, oh, the bands are like too expensive or whatever. So they were looking at DJ, but then they found me and they were like, oh, it's like basically a mix of both, which is kind of like that's like my goal with what I
Right.
do, to find that kind of like in between space.
Mhm.
It's feel do something that feels like authentic to me as a musician too. Um, and so, everything was good. We had it booked. I told them, everything that I needed in advance. And part of that was I needed to know how many people I was gonna be performing for.
Right.
And so they were like they were yeah, they were just very like much like trying to haggle with
Mhm.
different things with different parts of like my pricing and stuff like that. And so part of it was, they were like, okay, well, I don't want to pay half for a security deposit. Is it okay if I pay this much? And I was like, I'd never had any problems before that. So I was like,
Mhm.
okay, yeah, no problem. Like, pay that because the goal at the end of the day is to complete the performance. You know what I mean? And
Right. Right.
they were presenting it as we don't know you from a hole in the wall. Like, how do we know that you're not just going to take the money and run away or decide that you want to be a doctor next year or something? And I was like, well, because my business kind of depends on it, my reputation, like everything. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Um, and so what ended up happening was, um, I'm guessing what happened is they were wait because when you book something that far in advance, you have to raise your prices a little bit,
Yeah.
um, because part of the reason what they want to have that security of knowing that they have somebody way in advance, but you don't know your rates might go up like a lot higher within that year. So you need
Mhm.
to make sure you have a little bit of cushion. So I think what ended up happening was they kind of waited until like 20 days before. And then they were like, oh, due to unfortunate and unforeseen circumstances, we can't go forward with our booking. But I could see that they had gone through with the wedding. It wasn't like the wedding was canceled, but they framed
Right.
it in a way like that. And then I was like, well, based on the contract that you signed, you owe me the entire balance
Right.
because it's within 30 days of the event. Because that's one thing that I put in my contract is if you cancel within 30 days, you owe the entire balance because I'm
Yeah.
not I don't I want the people that sign contracts with me, I want them to be just as committed as I'm committed to them. And
Yeah.
I'm not like the type of person that's like if you reach out to me and you're like, man, like this crazy situation happened, like we're hurting really bad financially, like I might just like give you your security deposit back and find somewhere else to perform with it, if it makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
um and like it's not like heartless on like, because and I never really want to be stuck in a contract or be stuck in a situation where I'm performing somewhere where I'm not necessarily like wanted. Like that's such an awkward position to be in.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
it's not that. But in this particular situation, what had happened was so I like I said, I told them a few different things that I needed in order to give them a quote. And basically they told me the number of people, the number of guests that they told me that they were going to have uh,
Mm-hmm.
ended up doubling. So
Mm.
it went from, I think it was like 670 or something like that to like 150. And so, and not only that, but then they told me that they want me in it to play the steel pan in one location and DJ in a whole different location. So, and
Wow.
not only that, but they told me that I could only have a 15-minute break in between my pan set and my DJ set. So I was like, listen, I can do that, but at the end of the day, like I'm going to need to get more equipment. So either, you can provide that extra
Mm-hmm.
equipment that's needed, but based on the contract, you stated a whole different number of people, and that's going to change what I need to perform for this. You know what I mean?
Right.
And and I told him too, I was like, yeah, like I'll cover half of the expenses on the equipment, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And they ended up basically being like, oh yeah, okay, like no problem, that works for us. And then this was like a month, like 2 months before, and then a month passes, and a month and some change passes, and then they reach out to me with that, like, oh yeah, sorry, like we had like an unfortunate situation.
Right.
And then it was like when I told them like, oh, did you read the contract because you owe the full balance? Like the lady started freaking out and getting like nasty, like just saying
Mm.
like wild stuff, like we're not gonna pay nothing, like you're a scammer, like just weird stuff like that. And I'm like, no, and not only that, like threatening like my business, like, oh yeah, you should make sure that you have the right permits and insurance before you start making threats towards us. And I'm like, I'm not threatening you. I'm literally just stating
Wow.
this is what it says in the contract. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And um and then I what I ended up doing was I sent them a email being like, hey, I got the request to cancel, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just basically, outlining like, hey, this is what the contract says. This is what you owe on this date. Um, they didn't respond to that, and I basically I was in a position where it's like, okay, well, I can bring it to small claims court,
Yeah.
or I can just decide it's not worth my time, and I just decided, hey, it's not worth my time. But
Yeah.
like since then, the way that I've kind of remedied that is I'm I'm a lot stricter on the security deposits. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I mean? I make sure that all that money is there before I'm even like considering showing up.
Yeah.
Um, you know what I mean? Before I end up blocking off my date, because what ended up happening in that situation was I had, about a month before, I had reached out to the residency that I'm at,
Mm-hmm.
and I had gotten somebody to fill in for me. And so by the time that they had reached out to me, I'd already had like, somebody
Something
fill
lined up.
so the amount of money that they had in their security deposit wasn't even close to like what I would have, made generally. So it
Yeah.
just, yeah, it was a bad situation, but I just kind of chose to like chalk it up as an L and just learn from it and use it as a learning lesson more than anything.
Exactly. Exactly. And I feel like a lot of us have had those moments because I've had quite a few of those.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. Like, yeah.
What sort of things have you run into?
I've had people because I do ask for some kind of deposit or pay me before I even take things out of my car. And I've had excuses of,
Wait, wait,
oh, our
wait.
treasurer.
Repeat that last part.
Um, I usually ask for a deposit, or if they can't give me a deposit, I want to get paid before I even take anything out of my car.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I get some excuses of, oh, our treasurer isn't here yet. We need two signatures for the check. And I'm like, okay, well, let your treasurer know that she needs to be here ASAP, or else I'm not performing until it gets here. And I've just had people, well, can you just play for like 5, 10 minutes and I'm sure she'll get here? And goodness of my heart, I'm like, okay, I'll do it. I trust you.
Yeah.
Treasure didn't show up for that whole event. And I'm just like, well, I'm not leaving until I get my money. So gotta figure it out. And I've stayed at locations for hours just sitting there waiting for my money
Really?
because I'm not. Yeah,
Did you ever end
I've
up
had.
getting paid in that situation?
Sorry.
Did you end up getting paid in that
Yeah,
situation?
eventually, but it just took a while.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it just took a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
It's,
annoying.
it's yeah, it's tough, honestly. Like,
Mhm.
but there have also been situations too where it's um, like I did this one wedding, and the bride and the groom were like, "Hey, listen, like, um, we don't have any more cash on us right now.
Mhm.
Um, we're gonna be we're gonna be in this area. We know you have like a performance like right down the road tomorrow. Is there any way you could come by like after the performance?" I'm like, "Yeah, like no problem."
Yeah.
um and they ended up like tipping me like $200 or something like that,
Those are the
just
best.
because like yeah, exactly, and but after that one situation, it kind of like makes your heart a little bit cold. Like, nah, I'm not doing that. I'm not with that.
Yep. 100%. And the thing is, I don't understand is that if it's any other performer or DJ, they'll pay them right away.
Yeah,
But when it comes to steel pan players, we have the difficult time of asking for money or getting people to sign a contract and abide by that contract. And it's very annoying. Steel Pan Bahamas says I always overcharge, and
that
that's
part.
that part. That
But
part, 100%,
so
100%.
so my me and my homeboy Isaiah, like I said, he's from Trinidad too.
Hmm.
Um, and so okay, so you asked about how I got into steel pan. So, I grew up playing the steel pan. Like, it was always part of my life, like, kind of culturally, but
Hmm.
to me, it was like kind of cliche because of the fact that everybody around me were like, they played the pan, or, it just like felt kind of cliche because I like really was like just immersed in that culture, and I like in
Right.
my household that's my brother played it, my dad played it, you know and then I go play in the steel pan orchestra, but I was playing the bass guitar because I'm like, I want to do something different, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then my homeboy Delano, he played the drums, so we would go to like the African Caribbean social club, and me and him would just we would be off on the side playing ball because we both played soccer at a high level. Like, he ended up going to England
Oh
to ball
wow.
for a while, and a lot of the people that he played with like ended up going pro and stuff. So
Hmm.
um, we would always be doing our thing. Like, we were playing against each other in high school too. So we would be like competing, like, oh, we both played the same position. So
Yeah.
we'd be like, who's like scoring the most goals, and we were like neck and neck. Like, that one season, we both scored like, I want to say like close to 15 to like, I think I scored 17 goals last season. But
Wow.
yeah, like we would just like be off on the side doing our thing because we were playing different instruments, right? And then when I was in, just had finished college, my brother passed away, and
Oh,
then
sorry.
I went home to kind of like take care of my family. My dad was really sick at that
Yeah.
time. My dad passed away like 6 months after that. So
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I inherited two steel pans within very short time, and
Hmm.
I just kind of at that point I had grown to appreciate the fact that, like, especially cultures outside of the Caribbean, like
Yeah.
like within our culture, especially if we're outside of the Caribbean, but it's like, okay, we have these Caribbean roots.
Hmm.
Like, we appreciate it when we see it, like, oh, that's like representative of us,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? In
Yeah.
a different land.
Yeah.
And and then on top of that too, I feel like there's something that my dad would always say. you know, even you know, Americans, they'll go to, or people from the United States, they'll go to the Caribbean, they'll go to Trinidad, they'll go to St. Kitts, they'll go to Jamaica or whatever, and they'll have their wedding there or whatever. And then when they
Hmm.
hear the steel pan, every time they hear the steel pan, it brings back memories of those vacations and stuff like that. So there's a lot going on there. And so I just kind of was like, you know, I just kind of had grown an appreciation of like, man, I kind of like almost at that point didn't really even see myself as a panist
Hmm.
because I hadn't played it so long. And then, you know, Isaiah taught me a couple of songs on the steel pan. Um, and then I just kind of went from there, like learning songs on my own, and then kind of built it up over time. And I just kind of looked at it as this is a way to kind of like honor my recent ancestors
Yeah.
and, um, you know, be able to. I feel like they just kind of were guiding me to just pick up the pen and really do what I'm doing right now, to be
Hmm.
honest.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah. Steel Pan Bahamas just says, I notice in the touristic business, they usually go with the top value from my experience. And usually they do. They will pay anything. Some people, some will pay anything.
Yeah. Wait, he said, wait, let me see. Let's see.
And while you're reading that, everyone that just joined, if you have any questions or comments, please put it in the question bubble on the bottom right there so I don't miss anything. Go on.
Yeah, so oh yeah, so on that topic, I feel like one thing that happens, especially in this area, and I heard that it happens in New York a little bit too, is
Hmm.
that a lot of people, and this goes back to what you were saying before about, you know, sometimes we have a lot of difficulty as panists and people actually paying us what we're worth, or you know, um, like being able to be respected the same way as like, you know, other types of performers.
Yeah.
And I think a big part of that also has to do with like our as a community, like our ability to look at ourselves as like, oh, we're a community, um, and
Yeah.
not only that, we're a community where our demand is much higher than our supply, and
Hmm.
in knowing that we can raise the bar together versus, you know, I feel like a lot what happens a lot, especially down here, is people will, you know, I've heard from some panists down here that they don't even want to post where they're performing at because they're afraid that another panist is going to come in and they're going to just be like, oh yeah, I can do this better, but I'll charge $100 less than whatever
Wow.
they're charging, which is like to me that's so cutthroat, and it's like it's not even beneficial because you're already like, this is somebody that's charging like obviously what they find is a fair rate,
Hmm.
and you're and instead of going to that person and be like, hey, how do you think I could get a gig like this and charge the same rate? Like like
Exactly.
what you know that I could learn from.
Hmm.
Instead of that, they're going behind their back and taking away like food off of their plate. Not only that, but you probably not even able to eat off of the scraps that you
Exactly.
grab. You know what I mean? So I think that that's one thing that I would love to see change. I think being able to, as like a community, realize what our worth is, especially outside of the when you step outside of the Caribbean.
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
Hmm. Yeah. So how did you kind of put your price set? Did you talk to other pan players in your area, or did you just kind of said, this is what I'm worth and this is what I'm charging?
Um, uh, well, for me, because I grew up in a house full of musicians, like I grew up with a bunch of rosters that played reggae music at, you know, wherever bars, weddings,
Hmm.
same thing. like corporate events, all type of stuff, you know what I mean? And from that, I just learned things along the way, you know, and so like my pricing structure really hasn't changed a lot out from you know the type of pricing structure that my dad had,
Okay.
especially when it like restaurants and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the thing that I realized is that like with private events, you know, and like one-time things, you know, you obviously have to have a different business model for
Yeah.
those sort of events. Because for one thing, corporations are always going to have a higher budget for the most part. I
Yeah.
mean, sometimes like, oh yeah, well, we only have this amount, but if they're a corporation, they have more money. It's just they don't value your
Yeah.
time as much. And I'm not really into like doing stuff for people just because they don't like not because they don't have the budget, but just because they don't put as much value on what you're doing as, you know, what you know,
Mm-hmm.
you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I agree.
yeah.
I agree. I agree. Um, since you've moved to Florida from Boston, how is the pan received? Has everyone been kind of okay with it? Is it still, what is this? I need to learn more about it. How is it being received from what you've experienced?
So like received by the people that I interact with when I'm
Yeah,
performing.
yeah.
I would say, all right, so in in um in Massachusetts, the places where I would perform, they were a little bit, I don't know how to like phrase this, like all right, so
Just say it, just say it.
just to put it bluntly, like you know, it, like like I was staying in Boston, right? But most of my performances would be like in Cape Cod, and in that region, there's like a lot more white folks in that area, you know.
Yeah,
So it was kind of looked at as like, oh, this is like an amazing thing, and like people had like a lot of respect for it, especially like in the Northeast in that area,
right,
like in Cape Cod.
right.
You know, people outside of that culture like had a lot of respect for it, like, whoa, this is like something I've never experienced before, and it's like such a cool thing, like culturally, and it feels authentic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think the difference is down here. There's that, but then there's also a lot of Caribbean people that, like I said, they're like when they hear it, they're like, this is representing me. So like they just show love on like a whole different level, you know? So
Right.
that's definitely a blessing to have that
Yeah.
here. Like I'm doing a Bahamian wedding on Thursday actually.
Hold
So
on,
that's gonna
sorry.
be great.
A wedding on
Yeah,
Thursday?
yeah, I know, right? It's super rare, but like yeah, I definitely gave them a good price.
Yeah.
Because you know it's not you don't usually get weddings on a Thursday.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's part of the reason too why they booked their wedding on a Thursday is because the venue probably also was like, yeah,
Super.
they'll be able to give you a better rate, you
Yeah.
know, on Thursday compared to like Saturday or Sunday.
Yeah. Steel Pan Bahamas has a question. How do you guys charge for being flowed out for destination events?
How do I charge?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I would say it depends where it's at, because like
Yeah.
for example, if I was getting, so this actually happened recently. I got a request to do a wedding in Massachusetts, and I ended up you know cutting all the rates on like a lot of the things that I would normally charge on, like transportation, um uh lodging,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and stuff like that, because what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna because it's gonna be it's like a big event, so um you got to keep in mind, like if you have something regular on a Saturday or Sunday, right?
Yeah.
You not only have to charge enough to make up for whatever you would get paid for that, right?
Hmm.
But also, there's always a little bit of risk when you take time off from something steady, that they might whatever move on, find
Yeah.
someone else or whatever, which is that's all part of the game, but you
Yep.
you gotta charge a little bit extra considering that, right? And then
Hmm.
you gotta um you gotta also make sure that you're covering all the expenses, the equipment that you're not going to be able to travel with, all that. And then uh and then obviously what you would generally charge for your time, and then a little bit more because it's going to be a lot more time that you're spending on that event. um
Exactly.
but but yeah, in that situation, I cut down like all the lodging and stuff like that, because I'm gonna go home, take that whole weekend off. So I'm gonna leave like right after my last performance on the weekend prior. I'm gonna
Hmm.
go home. I'm gonna spend that whole week with my family, and then I'm gonna do the performance, and then I'm gonna spend the whole next week with my family, and then I'm gonna come back to Miami that following weekend and do my performances down here.
Yeah.
um but yeah, that's there's a lot that you got to take into consideration. So what I would tell you to do is have a consultation with the person that you're going to be performing for.
Hmm.
Get a scope of what they want, because if they're asking you to do they might be asking you to do something that's going to cost you a lot more money. Like, for example, that situation where they were like, okay, we need you to perform here and we need you to perform over there, and you
Hmm.
have 15 minutes to transition. That means you're gonna need to have two different setups already, right? So
Yeah.
you want to make sure you don't just say like, oh yeah, before you get all the details, oh yeah, this is what I'm gonna charge,
Yeah.
and then
Exactly.
once you have that conversation, because there's so many different variables in that situation that you got
Hmm.
to take into consideration. um, I would definitely take some time, sit down with them, jot out whatever notes, like whatever expenses you're gonna see, like in terms of raw expenses, and then
Hmm.
even also certain variables that you're like, man, this might change over time. Like sometimes, for example, renting equipment, it might change,
Yeah.
day to day. So factor that all that in, and then just kind of come up with a number based on those notes, so
Hmm.
you can give them something accurate, rather than back and forth and be like, oh, this is a number, and then they tell you, oh, okay, this is what we want for like the scope, and then you're like, oh man, that's going to cost me a lot. Like, I'm not even going to be making money at the end of that.
Yeah.
And then you go back to them and tell them like, oh yeah, well, it's going to be this much now. People don't really like a lot of back and forth,
Hmm.
so being able to just give them a number one time and stick to it,
Yeah.
um, that's that's something that I like highly recommend, if you can do it.
Yeah. Definitely. Um, from my experience, I've only done it a few times, but it's been pretty simple. If they have a sound system already, I just tell them what I need with that sound system, so that way I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
Um, like you have family where you're going. Where I went, I didn't know anyone, so I was like, I need my flight paid for. I need my pan paid for because that's you're paying me to go there, so I need my pan there. I need a per diem. Um, what else? I need transportation. So you need all that covered, especially if you're going somewhere that you don't know anyone. So
Yeah, exactly.
again, every yeah, I was gonna say every outside event differs. So just to, as you said, have a consultation, see what works, and go from there.
Yeah. I was gonna ask too, like, and anybody in the chat too can feel free to chime in on this. Um,
Mhm.
when when you're traveling with your pen, because obviously, like nightmare situation is just you're traveling and your pen goes out of tune. Either on the way, obviously on the way there is even worse,
Mhm.
but even on the way, pretty bad because you it's you already know. You already know. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I was wondering if there's anything that anybody recommends in terms of like specific cases, and then specific like padding within those cases, if there's anything that anybody does extra with that.
Yeah.
And oh yeah, any just like best practices in terms of traveling with your pan, because
Yeah.
I've done, I didn't have any problems,
Hmm.
but I know that's it, you know, just seeing how people handle stuff and like knowing how careful I have to be with my pen and how careful I am. No, I can't trust anybody to be as careful as I am with it. You
That's
know
right.
what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah. Before I get that question asked, Steel Pan Bahama says, I only charge for my performance one time. Everything else is the responsibility of the client. That's fair. That's fair. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way to go about it. The only
Hmm.
you might run into it with that sometimes is if it if they add things like when they start adding things to the scope and then they're not even thinking about like, oh, you know, if we were asking you to do this, like, you know, obviously it's gonna cost a lot more money
Yeah.
to whatever if you gotta go and source some speakers versus them having them right on the premises.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They might start being like, oh well, this is getting expensive, or you know, people do weird stuff, so
They do.
try to
They do.
avoid that
Um,
as much as
yeah. When I travel with my pan, someone told me pool noodles. It also depends on how big your case is. If you put pool noodles on the edge of your pan, like the skirt and the rim,
possible.
that's a source of
Like
protection. Um,
like wrapping it, like
yeah,
wrap.
like put a slit in the middle and like wrap it around.
Oh,
That's what one person told me. Another person said if you get like the the soft dense foam or high dense foam and stick it at the bottom and the top of your pan, you can do that.
mm,
What I did was I put the thickest blanket I have and I wrapped my pan like a baby and stuck it in my case. So that's what I did, and it came
you
out
said
fine. Like nothing
you
came out of tune.
blanket.
I use a blanket.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's what I on the bottom and the top and like wrapped up on the outside of it, and
okay.
it helped.
Yeah,
So.
I put foam in mine,
Hmm.
but and I have a like kind of like hard case, but it's not. It's like a hard case. It was my dad's, but it was like a
Hmm.
hard case, but it's still not like it's not like the carbon fiber, you know, hard cases like that.
Yeah.
Um, and but when I put the foam in it though, it doesn't close fully. So like
Hmm.
I don't know how to explain it. Like it's like one of the ones where you put the top down and then it like form fits into
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
um
Yeah.
and then but the top doesn't touch the like the other
Yeah.
part of the pancase, you know what I mean? It just
Yeah.
and so I'm like, man, would this do worse damage than just not having the foam in it? Or I don't know.
Yeah. You kind of have to play around because my case is pretty tight around my pan.
Mm,
So I tried the pool noodles and that didn't work for my pan because the case is really tight.
yeah.
Um, I had like a little bit of foam, but I didn't feel confident in that. So I literally just used blankets and it helped. And I
Okay.
also watched when they put my pan on the plane and off the plane. So
Oh, really? How do you do that? I'll be trying to like, man, just pressure them like so much, like, like I'll be extra like fragile all over it, and be like,
yeah.
hey,
Oh my,
I don't know if you can see this here, but this is really fragile. So like when you put it down, you gotta like put it down light. Like there's a lot of glass
mhm.
here.
Yeah. Yeah. I usually find a seat where I can see them loading in. That's where I usually do.
uh,
And I usually go on the plane last so I can see my pan going in the thing. Yeah.
yeah,
Once I see my pan on there safely, then I'll go on the plane.
because I've actually had a situation in the past, like my ex lived in LA and I was taking a trip and I brought my guitar with me on my
Hmm.
way back to Massachusetts. My they they just like I don't know what they did, but they must have just thrown my guitar case because I had a hard guitar case. It was like wooden hard case,
Hmm.
and they must have just like thrown my guitar and then just like thrown a bunch of like big like suitcases on top of it or something because the wooden case was broken and then
Oh
on
my God.
it the my switch on the guitar my pickup switch
Yeah.
uh that that was like pressed all the way in so the actual body of the guitar was broken but they ended up actually paying. I think they reimbursed me for the entire flight, and they ended up paying for me to get a new case and for me
Okay.
to fix my guitar, which is like crazy because I was through Spirit. So
Wow.
right,
Wow.
yeah, I
That
was
is,
surprised too.
yeah.
But
Huh. I thought you could take your guitar on the flight though. No? Well, I guess it's
no,
Spirit, so it's different.
nah, it so like there's that rule where it's like you can take you can gate check for free any musical instrument in the United States at least I don't know about other countries
Mm, okay.
um but and you can take it on the plane if it's small enough to fit in the overhead but my guitar's not small enough to fit in the overhead
Right.
so you could do that with like saxophones violins.
Right.
Another reason
Okay.
why I should have played the violin back in the day instead of the cello.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and yeah, some of those other small instruments, you know, but it has to be able to fit in the overhead. But and
Gotcha.
not only that, but there also has to be enough space in the overhead because that it gets like last priority with that.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so generally there's no way that you could take that
Gotcha.
on the flight. And not only that, but people I don't know about you. I
Hmm.
feel like people are constantly pressing you throughout my entire time when I'm every time I fly with an instrument, like, oh, you're not going to be able to bring that on the plane. I'm like, no, I know what I'm doing. Like I do this all the time. Like you
Yeah.
just please just like let me through. Like no, I have to go and get my manager, and then the manager comes, and they're like, yeah, no, he knows what he's talking about. Like just go, like let him go through. You know what I mean? And
Never
then
had that.
you never had that?
Mm-mm.
No, because like like that's why too. There's a law that you could print out, and if you have that, it just makes it a lot easier. You could just take it out of your pocket and be like, "Hey, look, this is the law." It makes it a lot easier. But I've never gotten through security without somebody being like, "No, you can't get through with that," and they just
Wow.
don't. And they don't know what they're talking about.
Right. Huh.
So yeah,
Crazy.
so for anybody who's interested in that, especially that lives in the United States, there's a law that Obama passed that allows like everybody with a musical instrument to um, take that musical instrument on the plane for free. You don't have to pay for an extra seat, nothing like that. Um, the only thing is, like I said, if it's too big to fit in the overhead compartment, and if the overhead compartment is too filled to be able to accommodate that too, it has to be gate checked. Meaning you can bring it all the way through security, all the way to the gate, and then somebody at the gate will grab it and take it onto the plane like a stroller or something like that. You know.
To know.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't know that. I did a lot of research when I first like flew with my guitar,
Hmm.
and I found that out. So I kind of like always stuck with it. But every time I always get through because that's the law, right?
Yeah.
But every time somebody tells me, nah, you're not gonna be able to get through with that. Like, oh, you could try. Like, bro, I'm gonna try. Like, just leave me alone.
Yeah, I'm gonna try. One last question before we close out, because we've hit the hour mark, so the hour went by fast.
Yeah.
Silvan Bahama says, what is your favorite venues?
Favorite venues. All right, so I would say, man, I would say for me, obviously by the water. That's always like my any venues that are by the water, because
Mm-hmm.
honestly, they love me there as much as I love being there, and it's always nice to have a view while you're performing.
Yeah.
Um, and then, obviously wedding venues, because generally when you're doing weddings, like people, that's something people want to splurge on. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
typically the venues for weddings are pretty nice. Especially down here, you see a lot of like waterfront venues, stuff like that. So
Yeah. Nice. Awesome. Well, thank you again for joining us tonight. It was an amazing conversation. Learned a lot. You learned a lot.
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Do
Yeah,
you want
I'm
to
a, I'm
mention?
I'm gonna tap back in with you too about everything that you mentioned about flying with your can and protecting you. So,
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I'm here.
mhm.
Uh, you mentioned earlier that you're dropping something later this month or this year. Do you want to kind of mention that again for those people that just joined?
Yeah. Okay. So all right. So I'm gonna be doing instrumental album, and so basically these are all original tracks that I produced myself. Mostly with live instruments too. So I played the guitar, bass guitar, like all the guitar, bass guitar, steel pan that you hear on the instrumentals. Um, I did that live, most of the keys and stuff like that. I did that live too. And basically the goal is to kind of get it to a level where I can get some of those tracks placed on like whatever it is, like it could be like commercials, or it could be movies, stuff like that. But sync licensing is a great way to kind of like get your work recognized and get paid for it. That's a little bit of an avenue that not everybody is not necessarily the typical route.
Yeah.
Um, and not only that too, but in putting out those instrumental albums, obviously my goal is to have some artists hop on them too. So this first project is gonna be kind of like, I don't want to give it a genre, but I would say it's like Afro Caribbean, just like different styles of
Okay.
Afro Caribbean music. So like just like roots reggae to like Afro beats to kind of like Afro house, and just kind of like that trappy reggae feel, stuff like that. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So
Okay.
and then I'm gonna put on SoundCloud and YouTube. I'm gonna put up mashed up versions with like modern big stars. So like Jada Kingdom, Byron Messiah, a few other people. So yeah.
I'm excited. I'm excited. When you release that, let me know so I can post it. So let everyone tune in and look out for it. Because I'm excited. I'm excited for you.
Good. Yeah, follow me on, if you're not already following me, follow me because I'm gonna post it all on my page too. So
Good. Good. Make sure you follow him. He's pinned at the bottom of the page. So make sure you follow him. And I want to thank you again for this amazing conversation. Thank you for the viewers tuning in. Like always, it's been fun. Next week I have an amazing pan player. I don't want to give too much, but she's doing something different, and I feel like everyone should take take it in. So yeah, again, have a great night. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we will definitely keep in touch.
yeah, thank you so much, and thanks for having me. And
Of
we
course.
gotta do one of these episodes. where somebody's interviewing you. I would raise my hand to be the person to interview you, but I don't know if there's
Okay.
somebody else that might be able to do a better interview. But I would love to watch that as well. So
Okay.
yeah.
I'll keep that in mind.
All right, cool.
Awesome. Thank you again, everyone. Have a good night and see you next week.
All right.
Bye.
Nice.